He was a single father doing everything right, working full-time, raising his child alone, and following every court rule. But on one ordinary morning, he missed a single court date. No warning, no second chance, just one absence. What seemed like a small mistake triggered a chain reaction that threatened to take everything from him. As the judge looked at an empty chair where he should have been sitting, a decision was made. And in that moment, his life began to change in ways he never imagined. Life as a single parent is already a constant balancing act. Between work, childcare, bills, and exhaustion, even the strongest parents struggle. Courts often expect perfection, but real life is messy. This story is not about irresponsibility. It is about pressure, timing, and how quickly the system can move when someone is not present to defend themselves. Many parents believe missing one date can be explained later. What they don't realize is that in family court, silence can speak louder than words. The father had always been a man of routine. Every morning he woke up early, prepared breakfast for his child, helped with school bags, and made sure every little detail of his child's day was in order. Being a single parent was never easy, but he took pride in doing everything himself. From school drop-offs to doctor visits, extracurricular activities, and weekend outings, he was there for every moment. Friends and colleagues often marveled at his ability to manage work and parenting, but those who truly understood him knew that it was a life of constant stress. The kind of stress that doesn't end when the sun goes down, but lingers quietly as you lie awake worrying about tomorrow. He had been doing this for years without missing a single responsibility, and he believed he could continue like this forever. Then, one morning, the unimaginable happened. His child's school called with an urgent situation. The child had fallen and needed immediate attention. He rushed to the school, handled the situation, and stayed with his child until everything was under control. In the chaos, he completely forgot about a court date that had been scheduled for weeks. This was not intentional. He had not ignored the court. He had not refused to comply with the law. He had simply been caught in a moment where his child needed him more than any paperwork or legal obligation. Yet in family court, timing can outweigh intent. What seemed like a single oversight was about to become a defining moment. When he realized he had missed the court date, his heart sank. He felt a wave of panic, unlike anything he had experienced before. He imagined the worst. The judge assuming he was negligent, the opposing party claiming he was unreliable, and the possibility of losing time with his child. The father immediately tried to contact the court, but the office was closed. He left messages, sent emails, and called repeatedly, but there was no immediate answer. That night, he could barely sleep. He replayed the day in his mind, thinking about every choice he had made and wondering if he could undo them. This one absence felt catastrophic, but he knew that panicking would not help. He had to act, carefully and deliberately. The next morning, the father reached out to his lawyer. Together, they went over every possible document, record, and piece of evidence that could prove he was responsible and dedicated as a parent. Work schedules, emails with the school, medical reports, everything that could show he was consistently present in his child's life was compiled. Every missed nap, every doctor's visit, every school meeting was meticulously recorded. His lawyer explained that while missing one court date could temporarily impact custody arrangements, the patterns over time mattered more. The court had to see a complete picture, not just one moment. The father realized then that his life, which had seemed ordinary and under control, was now being judged in fragments, and he had to ensure that every fragment reflected the truth of his dedication. When the case was reopened, the courtroom was tense. The judge, experienced and no-nonsense, had already reviewed the temporary decision made during his absence. Custody had been altered, visitation had been restricted. The father's child was now spending less time with him than before. Sitting in that courtroom, he felt a mixture of fear, determination, and urgency. He knew he had to explain not only the missed court date but also the life he had built as a parent, the consistency, the care, and the sacrifices that had gone unnoticed in the rush to judgment. This was no longer about winning a court battle. It was about showing who he truly was as a parent. As the hearing began, he calmly presented his case. He spoke about his daily routines, his work commitments, and the ways he had always prioritized his child's needs. He explained the emergency that caused him to miss the court date, providing emails, doctor notes, and school records as proof. His voice was steady, his demeanor composed, and his words genuine. He did not make excuses. He explained circumstances. The judge listened intently, taking notes, occasionally glancing at the opposing party. It became clear that the father's consistency and honesty were powerful tools in their own right. While many parents might try to argue or deflect blame, he simply told the truth. And in this courtroom, the truth carried more weight than theatrics. Throughout the hearing, the father's character became evident. He had traits that the court could not ignore. He was responsible, committed, and emotionally present. He did not react with anger or frustration when challenged. He remained respectful and composed, even when accusations were made against him. These traits, patience, honesty, and self-control, were not just abstract qualities. They were visible in every word, every gesture, and every document he presented. The court could see that he was not a parent who acted impulsively or selfishly, but one who carefully considered his child's well-being in every decision. The opposing party tried to emphasize the missed court date as evidence of unreliability. They painted a picture of a parent who could not manage time or responsibilities. But the father countered this not with emotion but with facts. He showed a timeline of every commitment he had met, every court order he had followed, and every instance where he prioritized his child's needs above his own convenience. The judge began to see a stark contrast between the father's long-term dedication and the isolated incident of one missed date. This was the critical moment, when patterns outweighed moments, and history became more important than mistakes. One of the most powerful pieces of evidence he presented was a journal he had kept. Not a legal document, but a personal record of his daily life as a parent. Each entry described school drop-offs, late-night illnesses, homework help, and quiet moments of connection with his child. These pages demonstrated something intangible but undeniable: love, consistency, and care. The judge flipped through the journal, pausing at entries that showed dedication and responsibility. It was clear that this father had been fully engaged in his child's life, and the missed court date, while serious, did not define his overall character. The courtroom dynamics shifted as the evidence piled up. What had begun as a simple case of missed attendance became a study in character. The father's resilience, composure, and preparation shone through. Even the opposing party could not argue with documented proof of his care and consistency. The judge began asking questions not about the missed date, but about how the father handled emergencies, how he maintained routines, and how he prioritized his child's emotional needs. With each answer, the father reinforced the narrative that he was reliable, present, and capable, a parent who had made one mistake but lived every other day with extraordinary commitment. The father also demonstrated emotional intelligence. He acknowledged the court's concerns without defensiveness. He expressed understanding for why missing a court date was significant. He recognized the system's need for punctuality and accountability, but he also clarified the context: a genuine emergency. This combination of accountability and explanation highlighted his maturity. The court could see that he did not shirk responsibility, and that when a problem arose, he acted in a way that prioritized his child's safety and well-being. As the hearing progressed, the judge began to ask questions about communication. How had he informed the court of the missed date? What steps had he taken to prevent future issues? The father explained that he immediately contacted the court, his lawyer, and the opposing party, providing documentation and context. He also proposed systems to ensure it would never happen again: phone reminders, calendar alerts, and proactive communication strategies. This proactive approach further illustrated his commitment and reliability. It was not just about recovering from a mistake. It was about demonstrating foresight, responsibility, and care. By the end of the main portion of the hearing, the court had a clear picture of the father's life. He was not perfect. No parent is, but he was consistent, loving, and responsible. One missed court date could not erase years of dedication. Patterns, not isolated events, defined a parent's suitability, and the father's patterns were exemplary. His character, documentation, and composure painted a picture of someone worthy of trust and responsibility. The story of the missed court date and its aftermath also revealed another trait: resilience. The father faced an immediate threat to his relationship with his child, yet he did not give up. He organized evidence, communicated effectively, and presented himself calmly in court. This resilience was not just about legal strategy. It reflected emotional strength, the ability to handle pressure, and the determination to protect his child no matter what. For anyone watching, this was a lesson in how challenges, even when unexpected, can be met with courage and integrity. Ultimately, the main part of this story is about more than a court date. It is about responsibility, consistency, resilience, and emotional intelligence. It shows how a single mistake can test a parent's character, but also how truth, preparation, and dedication can prevail. The father's journey through this ordeal demonstrates that parenting is a long-term commitment, measured not by isolated moments but by daily actions, decisions, and love. The missed court date could have been a disaster, but it became a defining moment that highlighted the father's strengths and commitment. Missing one court date nearly cost him everything, but it also taught him a powerful lesson. Systems move fast, but truth moves deeper. This story reminds us that one mistake does not define a life, unless you let it. When you show up with honesty, preparation, and persistence, even a closed door can reopen. And sometimes the moment that almost breaks you becomes the moment that changes you for the better.